Welcome to WalkSmartNC's Pedestrian Safety Training for North Carolina state government employees. This training was developed in partnership with the UNC Chapel Hill Highway Safety Research Center. So what is WalkSmartNC? It is a pedestrian safety initiative that aims to engage and empower North Carolina state employees to reduce pedestrian injuries and fatalities. WalkSmartNC was launched in 2019 as a collaborative effort between the North Carolina Office of State Human Resources, the Governor's Highway Safety Program, state agencies, and local government partners. WalkSmartNC aims to reduce pedestrian injuries and fatalities by offering resources to drivers and pedestrians to protect lives and make walking safer everywhere, and foster education and awareness of these issues. Today's training program will address why pedestrian safety is important and common concerns, where pedestrian safety risks arise and how North Carolina roads are changing to address them, how state employees can improve walking conditions, and where state employees can connect with WalkSmartNC and other pedestrian safety initiatives. First and foremost, we are all pedestrians. State employees and everyone begin and end their journeys almost anywhere they go each day, walking on streets to reach their destinations, access public transit options, or drive a vehicle to a parking area. People using wheelchairs and other assistive mobility devices are also considered pedestrians. Keeping everyone safe while a pedestrian in their daily life, including those using wheelchairs or other assistive mobility devices, is a critical responsibility for all of us. Many of you are probably familiar with several recent pedestrian-related incidents occurring near your home, work, or somewhere in your community. So here's a question for you. Which of the items listed is a benefit of designing a walkable community? The answer is, of course, all of the above. When we design communities to be walkable, we improve safety for pedestrians and drivers. We can create more inviting spaces that encourage people to walk and achieve their health and physical activity goals and needs. We promote environmental stewardship by offering travel options that don't rely on fossil fuels or require as much pavement and concrete surface. And we use available roadway space more efficiently. We have a question?
I do. I have a question. Miss Scarlett, on the slide, there are some white triangles. What exactly does that mean?
These triangles indicate where drivers should stop their vehicles before reaching a crosswalk to warn drivers that it is likely pedestrians will be crossing the street in the forthcoming crosswalk. This will hopefully give pedestrians another layer of added protection. These triangles are being used more frequently and becoming more common as many traffic planners are focusing more on pedestrian safety. State employees and everyone in North Carolina are walking now more than ever before. Therefore, more counties and municipalities are recognizing the need for and benefits of having safe and walkable places in densely populated urban areas and rural towns, and the need for greenways to facilitate safe pedestrian travel. Why do we walk? Many reasons include personal health benefits, cost savings, convenience, and also reducing air pollution. While traveling in North Carolina, most everyone has experienced places they did not feel safe traveling on foot. Here's a few examples of common scenarios when pedestrians are at risk. So who is unsafe in the picture on the left? Well, the person standing on the traffic median in the middle of a multi-lane road are at great risk of injury when trying to cross multiple lanes of traffic in that location rather than the crosswalk that is nearby. How about the middle picture of a travel lane and a parking deck? This could certainly be a state employee parking deck. So who's most unsafe here? Everyone that's walking between the rows of cars are in danger of being hit by vehicles entering or exiting the deck or entering or exiting parking spaces. Now, how about the picture on the right of persons crossing a 3-lane road with no stoplight or crosswalk and not even at a corner? Traffic is coming from both directions at full speed. So anyone crossing at such a location is at high risk. It is important to remember that many roads, especially higher speed roads, are oriented only for motor vehicle travel, making walking especially unsafe or uncomfortable for pedestrians. Another key pedestrian safety concern for state employees and everyone involves turning vehicles. These graphics illustrate 3 examples that place pedestrians at risk: a vehicle making a right turn, a left turn, and coming out of a driveway. Drivers often focus more on traffic than on pedestrians when they reach intersections. And even though drivers are required to yield to pedestrians at intersections or in crosswalks, or when the walk signal is illuminated at an intersection, some drivers can be confused, distracted, or uninformed of the law. This creates a very dangerous situation for pedestrians trying to cross a street, particularly for older adults, children, persons using wheelchairs or other mobility devices, and those who also may need extra time to cross more safely. How many potential conflicts do you see in this illustration of a 4-way intersection? Imagine that you are the person walking on the sidewalk at the bottom of the screen, following the path shown to cross the street and proceed to walk in the opposite direction, as shown by the person near the top of the screen. At the same time, imagine there are vehicles in all 4 parts of that intersection seeking to go straight, turn right, and turn left. So how many potential lanes of traffic would you have to check to confirm that no vehicles will cross your path while you're crossing the street? The correct answer is 6. The arrows on this graphic indicate every lane the pedestrian must pay attention to when trying to get across that street. So to cross a typical 4-way intersection, pedestrians need to look behind them for right-turning vehicles, look left and right to check that all vehicles stop while the pedestrian has the green light or walk signal, and even look for oncoming left-turning traffic that may have a permissive turn signal. The complexity and risk of crossing streets at an intersection is why some state employees and others often choose instead to attempt to cross a street at a mid-block location. Depending on the number of lanes and traffic volume, pedestrians may think there are fewer conflicts and more opportunities for pedestrians to find a safe gap to cross the street. Also, many bus stops are located mid-block, which makes crossing at these locations more convenient when intersections with traffic signals are spaced far apart. However, this is an incorrect assumption. The risk of crossing mid-block may be higher than they seem. Here's why. When crossing at mid-block, pedestrians often experience fewer drivers yielding, vehicles traveling at higher speeds, and more obstructed views of oncoming traffic. Mid-block locations are also less likely to be well lit. According to police-reported crash records, 67% of pedestrians hit by drivers in North Carolina are hit at mid-block locations, while only 22% of pedestrian crashes occur at or near intersections. Also, as illustrated, one vehicle passing another vehicle that has stopped for a pedestrian is illegal. However, it is a common occurrence at mid-block crossings on multi-lane roads. Now, let's add a new twist. What is it like to be a pedestrian in the dark? Nationally, more than 75% of pedestrian fatalities occur during nighttime or dark conditions. In North Carolina, close to half of all pedestrian crashes occur at night, dusk, dawn, or under dark conditions. There are many potential reasons for this. At night, visibility is greatly reduced, and many places lack adequate lighting to illuminate pedestrians in or near street crossings. Also, drivers are more likely to be fatigued or impaired, reducing their alertness and reaction time at night. Without typical daytime traffic congestion, drivers are more likely to be traveling at speeds that can be lethal to pedestrians. High-speed traffic also poses a great risk for people walking or using wheelchairs or other assisted mobility devices. At higher speeds, drivers take in less of their visual surroundings, which is needed to detect the presence of a person in or near the road. High-speed driving also requires more time to slow down and react to a person in front of them to avoid a crash. The higher the speed at impact, the less likely a person can survive a crash as well. According to NHTSA, 13% of pedestrians will die or suffer severe injury if hit by a vehicle at 20 miles per hour. 40% will die or suffer a severe injury if hit by a vehicle at 30 miles per hour, and 73% the same if hit by a vehicle at 40 miles per hour. Now that we have discussed multiple pedestrian risks, let's talk some about what is changing on North Carolina roads to make pedestrians safer. Fortunately, local and state officials have lots of options to make travel safer for pedestrians. On some streets, the addition of clearly marked crosswalks, flashing beacons, crossing islands, or other safety treatments is helping to alert drivers to the presence of pedestrians and decrease speeds near pedestrian crossing points. I believe we have a question.
Yes. So when a pedestrian is walking down a busy street and there is no crosswalk, what should they do?
As seen in this picture, when there are no crosswalks, it's safer in general for pedestrians to cross at the intersection of two streets without a crosswalk rather than just darting into traffic somewhere mid-block. You may have also noticed in some locations that no right turn on red restrictions have been put in place. These prevent drivers from turning right at a red light in places where low visibility or high pedestrian activity creates higher risk for an injury. In addition, changes to pedestrian signals at intersections are providing more time for persons entering crosswalks to be seen by drivers before the traffic signal turns green for them to make a left or right turn. These are called leading pedestrian intervals. Other traffic calming efforts to reduce speed are also being implemented on both residential roads and commercial corridors. Across the state, more roundabouts are also being built, helping to reduce speed at intersections, reduce the number of conflict points where a crash could occur, and prevent severe and fatal crashes. Most drivers quickly get used to driving through roundabouts, but may need to be reminded to yield to pedestrians in a crosswalk and not encroach on a crosswalk where a person is walking. I believe we have another question.
Thank you. I've noticed a lot that you'll get to a marked crosswalk, you'll see a person there, but they're busy on a mobile device. They don't seem to recognize that it's their turn. What is your obligation as the motorist in that situation?
Proceed with caution. Slow down. Make eye contact with the pedestrian. Use hand signals to determine the pedestrian's intent as to whether they wish to cross at that time or not. And come to a full stop before reaching the crosswalk. Those extra few seconds that you take may well save someone from serious injury or death. Other changes include converting 4-lane, undivided roadways, as seen in the picture on the left, to 2 through lanes and a center turn lane, or median, as shown in the picture on the right. This design can decrease the distance that people have to travel to cross the road and reduce vehicle speeds, making the road safer for everyone. All of these changes, in conjunction with community outreach, are helping to improve compliance with the law, requiring all drivers in North Carolina to yield to pedestrians in marked crosswalks. North Carolina has had a complete streets policy since 2009 and has been working for years to implement these projects statewide. As these pictures demonstrate, complete streets are designed for use by everyone, no matter who they are or how they travel. Goals of complete streets include reducing pedestrian crashes and unsafe conditions, improving access and mobility for those without a vehicle, enhancing quality of life by providing transportation choices, and ensuring NCDOT has an equitable transportation system that works for everyone. Research evaluating these projects has consistently shown that complete streets projects save lives, not just for pedestrians, but for all road users. So how can state employees improve pedestrian safety? Take action. Report pedestrian safety-related concerns, incidents, and injuries to your supervisor, human resources contact, or safety leader. To report pedestrian hazards at any state work site, state employees can also use the Office of State Human Resources Flag the Hazard reporting tool. Examples of hazards include unsafe areas for walking due to disconnected sidewalks, inadequate lighting, fall or tripping hazards, dangerous steps, blind driveway exits, or any area where views are obstructed by landscaping or other obstacles. State employees can also use another web-based reporting mechanism, See-Click-Fix, to report pedestrian safety and roadway hazards within their communities. This tool connects people to local governments and agencies so that problems can be addressed. For example, the City of Raleigh has an active See-Click-Fix account that is routinely monitored by local transportation authorities. Municipal staff respond to incident reports and route them to the appropriate agency. As both a driver and a pedestrian, knowing some of the common scenarios that can lead to a crash or conflict between drivers and pedestrians can help reinforce safe behaviors. As a pedestrian, there will be times when you need to cross the street. As a driver, you will encounter pedestrians crossing the street. The question is, who has right-of-way? According to North Carolina state law, drivers must yield to pedestrians in marked crosswalks at intersections or mid-block. Drivers must also yield to pedestrians at an intersection even if there is no marked crosswalk. This slide illustrates these three scenarios. However, pedestrians must yield to drivers when not at an intersection or marked crosswalk. Another common scenario, we have another question.
If there are no electronic pedestrian signals at the crosswalk, what would you say the best practices are for the driver to follow?
Pedestrian crosswalks marked only with paint on the roadway should be treated the same as those with electronic signals that include video or audio prompts as to when pedestrians may safely cross. Now, another common scenario that may lead to a crash between a pedestrian and a driver is when a driver in one lane yields to a pedestrian crossing the street, but the driver in the next lane does not. The vehicle in the first lane may block both the second driver's view of the pedestrian and the pedestrian's view of the second driver. In this situation, the driver approaching from behind the stopped vehicle must stop and not pass the stopped vehicle, even if the lane is clear, and allow for the pedestrian to safely cross the street. In summary, state employees can help improve pedestrian safety by modeling safe behaviors and leading by example to encourage a culture of safety for both drivers and pedestrians. Here's some basic rules drivers can follow to drive smart and promote the safety of drivers and pedestrians every day. Always yield to people in crosswalks. When turning, look for pedestrians and bicyclists. Constantly scan your environment in parking lots, and especially whenever backing up your vehicle. And be on the lookout for pedestrians and bicyclists when driving at night. Here's some basic rules pedestrians can follow to walk smart to help reduce their risk of injury when walking. Be bright at night. Wear bright clothing or a reflective vest or carry a flashlight. If you need to cross the street when exiting a bus, look closely to ensure it is safe to do so, especially if there is no crosswalk. Be free of distractions such as headphones. Pay attention to what is happening around you at all times. Always walk facing traffic, especially when no sidewalk is available. Watch out for turning cars crossing your path, and in parking lots, always be alert for vehicles pulling in or out of parking spaces. For more pedestrian safety information, check out the WalkSmartNC website and these additional resources. The North Carolina Vision Zero program seeks to eliminate traffic deaths on North Carolina roads and places a heavy emphasis on pedestrian safety. Many cities who participate in the Vision Zero movement are also a part of the Watch for Me NC program. Watch for Me NC includes communities that have committed to improving safety for pedestrians and bicyclists, and through local coalitions for safety action plans and many outreach activities. OSHR's Miles for Wellness program invites state employees to come together to enjoy the benefits of walking to meet their physical activity goals while staying safe as a pedestrian. You can also find more information and contacts about pedestrian safety at the North Carolina Department of Transportation website. Their Division of Bicycle and Pedestrian Transportation maintains resources and facts on a number of pedestrian issues and projects. The nonprofit organization Bike Walk NC envisions a state where anyone can choose to bicycle, roll, run, and walk as practical, healthy, safe, and active transportation, and shares information on initiatives to improve walkability throughout the state. Thanks so much for your participation in today's training. For more information, please visit the WalkSmartNC website.